Okay, so you've got Autodesk Fusion 360 all set up. You've got your account made. You're ready to use it. I can actually check here by hovering over and I can see my name, so I know I'm signed in. And let's get started with just some random part. Okay, so we are going to make something that looks kind of like this, maybe a little different from that, but that's what we're going to aim for. Okay, and let's start by going to Fusion 360. And we always want to save our work from the very beginning. That's true of all our designs. So let's start with hitting the save button up here. Okay, click on it. And it's going to ask you to give this a name. Never leave it as untitled. In this case, we're just going to call it, I don't know, my first part. Okay. And hit save. And you'll see at the very beginning here, it shows my first part version 0. And let's start designing. Before we do that, I want to talk about a few things. Up here, we have our history browser. Okay, it was just a browser for your design. So as you build, this browser will grow in size, and you'll be able to get back and forth to different parts as you design them. One of the first things I want to do is check my document settings, make sure I'm in the units that I want. For in this case, we're going to go with millimeters. That's default. You can change it to inches if you want, but we're going to leave it as millimeters. Okay. And we're always going to start by creating a new component. Okay. So create new component. And let's give this new component a name. We'll change it to random body. You can change it to whatever you want, really, but this is in this part, it's just going to be a random body. Click OK. And we're ready to start doing that first component. Okay, so we're almost always going to start by creating a new sketch. So if you click on this button here, click on create new sketch, and we have a choice here. We can choose different planes, like the side to side this way, side to side this way, or top down. I'm going to choose the top down plane. And I'm going to go ahead and start with a basic thing, a rectangle. So I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. Okay. And right now it's set to a standard rectangle tool. I can set it to draw from the center, but I want to leave it as a 2-point rectangle. And I'm going to start from the origin here, which is right here in the middle, in the corner. Okay. So click, and you don't have to hold down your drag button or your click button. You just click once, and you'll notice that as I snap to the different squares, it goes by increments of 5 millimeters, which is actually pretty helpful. I'm going to move it until it says 40 by 75 and click. Okay. And I can actually zoom in a little bit by using the scroll wheel. Okay. So the scroll wheel on your mouse allows you to zoom in and zoom out. It helps me see it a little bit better. And let's do this. Let's go to the line tool. That's over here. Even though it looks like a curve, we're going to do a line. It allows you to do arcs. We'll get into that in another video. So let's do the line tool. And I'm going to start, I don't know, somewhere like here. I'm going to go up a little bit, 15 millimeters, click again. And then we'll go 25, let's see. Boy, I must have been a little bit off. But anyway, 25 millimeters or so. Up again, click, click, and click. Okay, so all I've really done is I've added to my initial rectangle. Now, before I do anything, I want this to be all one polygon, which means I need to get rid of this line here. And to do that's really easy. As long as you've closed everything up like we have here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the trim tool, which is a pair of scissors here. Click on it and hover over that little section. You'll notice that it turns purple or some other different color like that. Go ahead and click it, and it'll take care of it. It'll take it out. You may get a warning about constraints being changed, and that's because you made this 40 by 75, but that's not going to make any difference in this case. Okay, so now we're ready to finish sketch. So right up here, click Finish Sketch. And our first sketch is done. Now, I like to put this in isometric view. So I'm going to click on the little house here. you'll notice that this browser cube or view cube is the same as like what we see in Tinkercad and other programs. It's just a little bit more detailed, but we still have the home feature here, which takes us to the home isometric view. All right, so I want to give this little sketch here that we made some depth. So I'm going to click on this extrude tool over here, which basically means you're taking it in a third dimension. So go ahead and click on that. The only option we have is to take this polygon into a 3D shape. So it doesn't give me any options. It automatically highlights it. But I want to pull it up. You can see that as I drag it up, it goes up in steps. But I'm going to go ahead and extrude it to, let's go with 25. So I just typed in 25. You could also drag it up until it says 25. Either way is fine. Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit. Click OK. Okay. So now we've got this nice little three-dimensional, almost like a staircase thing. One of the cool things we can do with this program is we can add features to the edges and things like that pretty easily. One of the tools that you'll find really fun and easy to use is the fillet tool. So if you click on the fillet tool, what it's looking for right now is for you to tell it which edge you want it filleted. So I'm going to choose, let's just go with this one, okay? And it needs to know how much you want to fillet it. Okay, so how much of a curve radius do you want? So in this case, I'm going to just put 5. And you can see it made a nice curved radius. Okay, and there you go. So I can do that a few times and do different edges. This one here will actually, if I do a 5 radius, it'll actually curve it inward. Okay. And let's do a couple more. Let's do this one here. Make it 5. Okay. And one more. We'll do this one here. And let's make that 5. Enter. Okay. So now we've got a nice curved feature to the surface there. All right. Let's continue. After we've made the fillets, let's say we accidentally wanted this a little bit bigger. You can actually go back and change that. And to do that, we go over here on the browser. If you look over here where it says random body, remember when we named that component random body? If we click the arrow down here, you'll see that one of our options here is sketches. If we click that arrow, that'll take us to our original sketch at the very beginning. Okay, so if I double click that, I can go back to my original sketch and make changes. Okay, one of the neat features of this is we can use the sketch dimension tool. Okay, so if I click on that and then I click on this side, I can pull it out and click on it. And right now it's set to 40. I'm going to leave it at 40. So I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. Okay, but let's do one more. Let's do this bottom one. Let's click on that, drop it down. Right now it says 75. I'm going to change it to 95. Okay, hit enter. And all it's done is it's added a little bit on the side. So now if I hit finish sketch, you see that the entire extrusion has changed. Okay, so let's do some more things to this. By the way, if you want to pan it around like that, it's really easy to do. Click on your scroll wheel, not any of the buttons on your mouse, but the scroll wheel, that's actually a button. So if you click down and hold it, you can pan side to side. Very useful. Okay, so let's put a hole up here. All right. There's a few ways to do it, but for now, I'm just going to show you the hole tool. So if you click on the hole tool, okay, and I'm going to place it over here. Okay. I just clicked on that area in this general area and it put it there. I'm not going to worry about the size of the hole or anything like that. But what I am going to worry about is where it's placed. So if I hover over this edge here and click on it, I can change that to a specific dimension. I'm going to change it to 15 millimeters. So just 15. Okay. And you can see in my case, it slid down a tiny bit. And then I'm going to change over here. So I'm going to click here. And I'm going to change that to 15 as well. And you see it definitely slides over. And that looks good. So now if I hit OK, let's look at what we've got here. I'm going to use my view cube. Oops. Okay, now you'll notice that it didn't quite push it all the way through. You'll also notice it's kind of got a curved bottom to it. There's a reason for that. Let's look at it. So let's get it back into isometric view, just like this. I'm going to turn it just a little bit. Ooh, not that much. There we go, just like this. And look down here at the bottom. This is actually our design history. Okay, so if we hover over here, you'll notice that's where I can make changes to the hole. So I'm going to double click that. And over here, you'll notice that I have a few different things. First of all, most drill bits have kind of a curved or angled tip to it to drill. They don't really have a flat one like this, so I usually leave that alone. But there's a big difference here. Distance. The distance of the hole is set at 15. And if you remember, our extrusion was set at 25. So this is nowhere near getting all the way through. So I'm actually going to change this. I can change it to 25 so it goes all the way through, but there's an easier way. I'm just going to click this extents down menu here, and I'm going to change all. Okay. Now if I click OK, you can see it's cut all the way through. Okay. I can even go through and add a fillet on that edge if I want. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to make it, I don't know, 2. You don't have to do that. It's just a neat little feature. I could do the same thing on the inner edge without even rotating it. Change it to 2, enter. Okay, so now if I look on the back, that's got a nice little rounded fillet to it. So it's looking interesting now. Let's add a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to turn it so I can see the top of my object here. And I'm going to add a little feature in here. Okay, so to do that, let's go to create sketch. Okay, now the program wants to know where you want that sketch. Look at all my options. I can click it here. I can add a sketch here, here, on this side, on the front, on the back, on the bottom, on the left side. I'm going to choose right here. So it's going to add it to that plane. Okay. I'm going to do a little rectangle. And I'm going to start about right here. Okay. And draw a little rectangle. In my case, it's going to be 20 by 15. If I wanted to make changes, I could. But basically, I was actually a little off there. But if I set it here, what it's done is it's drawn a sketch right there on that face of the figure. So hit finish sketch. Okay. And I'm going to extrude that. This time I have to tell it what to extrude because I have all these choices. I'm going to choose this box right here. So click there and I'm going to extrude it up. Let's extrude it up 5 millimeters. Okay. Enter. And there you go. I've got a extruded little piece there. Okay. So it's starting to look like our original picture. Let's do one more thing. Let's add some text. This is not a tool you'll use a ton, but a lot of people starting out with the program like to try it because it's kind of interesting. So you don't notice a text tool up here in your menu, but you will click on this create menu dropdown. And if you look for it, you will see, oh, actually, I'm sorry. Before I do that, I have to hit a create new sketch. So create new sketch. And I'm going to add it to the front here. Okay. Now, if I go to create, you'll see one of my choices is a text tool. Okay. So click on that. And before you can type any text, you need to tell it where you want it and how big you want it. So I'm going to make my basically my text box from about here, and I'm sticking with the grid here. And I'm going to make it to there. That way, any text I type will end up in this area. Okay. You'll probably see something like this where the text is up in the upper left-hand corner. Well, I'll show you in a second how to change that. So let's change the text. Instead of saying sample text, we'll put my first part. And that looks good. I'm going to go ahead. In my case, I'm going to make it bold. You can make it italic if you want. I don't really want to do that. You can change the font if you want. I'm just going to leave mine as Arial. And for this one, I want it to be centered in here. So it's really easy to do. If you go down to alignment, you can go to align center, and then you can also align middle. So what that's going to do is align it top to bottom. So click on that. So now it's centered within this text box. Okay, that looks good. Click OK. And I'm going to go to my isometric view again, just so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to hit finish sketch. Okay, so there it is. So before I finish anything else, I want to go ahead and extrude that. So click on extrude. I have to tell it to extrude it. So I'm going to hover over it. And when it turns kind of a darker blue there, I'm going to click on it, and it needs to know how far. All right, so I can either make it go down into the surface like this, or I can make it go up above. I'm going to make it go up above, and I'm going to go with an extrusion of 5. Enter, and there you have it. We've got our first part. So these are just some of the basics. There's a lot you can do with this. We'll learn more about different shapes and features and modifications that you can make, patterns, things like that. But we just wanted to make a basic part. You'll notice that, like I said in the beginning, our little browser over here has grown in size. Same with our design history down here. Look at all these fillets. All these things can be changed. Now you can delete parts, you can change them. If I were to delete this whole, I would also need to delete these 2 fillets. So there's definitely things you can do. And of course, I've now got 3 sketches. So if you ever accidentally make an extra sketch that is causing you problems, you can come over here, right click on it, and delete it. I don't want to delete any of these though, so I'm leaving them. But it just goes to show that your browser menu will build as you go here. So that's my first part. You'll notice that it's auto saved and it changed it to V1, but just to be sure, I'm going to click save one more time. And you'll see this little message pop up saying user saved. I'll click OK. And there you go. It's saved. Now I'm safe to close my browser and work on something else. So hopefully this gets you started. Spend a little time making your own part, making your own design. Don't forget to save it and keep using these new tools. It's kind of cool.